Welcome to my official Season 16 Katarina Soloq guide.
God, man, Flash ignited me at level 6, like, just so dumb. Like, bro, what the fuck? That was just ridiculous. He literally E'd to a minion. He E'd to a minion, Gunblade, Q, R, and I'm dead. Guy just runs the server, I guess.
My name is Meloneasy. I've been Challenger Katarina since Season 10 and hit Challenger in Season 16 all solo in just 4 days into the new season. In this video, I'll be going over how to play Katarina in Season 16, covering her runes, builds, laning, combos, and team fighting, so you can consistently carry your games. To start off, let's go over the champion and identity of Katarina in general. So Katarina is a high risk, high reward champion. This is what makes her a strong champion in the right hands, as you can easily snowball your lead and take over games. She is a reset based champion, which is why she thrives in skirmishes and team fights, but she is generally viewed as being weak in lane. Now let's move on to her runes. There are 2 main rune pages you can run this season, either Conquer or Electrocute. Out of both of these options, there isn't a better option, as both of these rune pages can be considered depending on your team comp and the enemy team comp. For example, let's start with Electrocute. This is generally taken versus squishy team comps and better taken when your team isn't heavy in AP or ability power. A good scenario to take this rune would be to have 4 AD champions on your team, and the enemy team has enchanter bot lanes or mage mid lanes and low CC junglers. The Electrocute rune path is Electrocute, Sudden Impact for the extra damage in poke in lane, Grizzly Mementos for the lower CD on runes and sweeper, Relentless Hunter for the movement speed, which is more valuable than you actually think it is. For secondary, I like to take Triumph for the healing and extra gold, and Coup de Grace for the extra burst damage. And I always like to go double adaptive and flat health HP to survive lane. You can also choose to go bone plating, overgrowth, or unflinching, especially versus champions like Fizz, Talon, Echo, if you are having a hard time in lane. But in my experience, since they made Home Guard, the extra movement speed you get from recalling and running out of base, as well as the Baron and powered recall you get after completing your mid lane quest, you can almost always recall anytime and get back to lane without missing many minions, so I tend not to take second win anymore. Moving on to Conquer. This is best taken when your team is heavy in AP, so the enemy team is looking to build MR items, as they also have bruisers, tanky CC champions, and you aren't able to burst them and one-shot them with your combo. What people tend to undervalue about Conquer is the healing you get, especially mid to late game once you get your second to third item. The Conquer rune path is Conquer, Triumph, Legend Haste if you're going AP for the lower cooldown on your E and Qs for poking and all-inning, and Legend Alacrity for AD, and Last Stand. I did testing on both Coup de Grace, but in the end I found that Last Stand has more useful scenarios when taking Conquer. For secondary, I like to go Sudden Impact for the extra damage and Relentless Hunter for the extra movement speed. You can also choose to go Bone Plating or Second Wind or Overgrowth and Unflinching if you need more survivability in lane. For summoner spells, I like to run Flash and Ignite, as the value of Teleport has been lowered, especially in lane due to the new Home Guard and Baron recall you get from mid lane quests. Now you're able to get back to lane much faster. But you can still take Teleport if you're having lots of trouble in lane or after laning phase just to join teamfights faster. Let's move on to the items that you should be building on Katarina in Season 16. There are a few items you can start in Season 16, which are Dark Seal for the snowballing, Doran's Blade for the lane dominance, Doran's Shield for the lane survivability, and Longsword if you want an early Gunblade power spike. For your first item, you can decide to either go Gunblade or Lichbane if you're going AP, or if you're building AD, you can go Bork or Kraken. Second item, you can choose to go Shadow Flame for the most damage, or Lichbane after Gunblade for the movement speed. Or if you're going Conquer, you can go Nash's second item, but I generally avoid building Nash's as I feel Lichbane and Shadow Flame give a better combo. Third item, I would look to go Zhonya's or Rabadon's or Void Staff, depending on what you need the most. I wouldn't recommend building Zhonya's for players lower than Diamond, as most of them aren't utilizing the item well, sometimes not even activating it, and the stats on Zhonya's alone is really bad for the gold value spent. An example of a full build of Gunblade would be Gunblade, Lichbane, Shadow Flame, Void Staff, Rapidons. If you don't like going Gunblade, it is Lichbane, Shadow Flame, Void Staff, Rapidons, and you can either go Zhonya's or you can go Banshees. For AD Katarina, you want to build Bork, Kraken, Terminus, Jakshul, Death Dance, and Titanic, Randuin's, or Witsend. For boots, I would always recommend to go Sorks if you're going AP, and you should always look to finish your boots after your first item, especially if you have completed your mid-lane quest already. Merchants can be built in rare scenarios of the enemy team having lots of AP and crowd control, and Tabis can be built into heavy AD auto-attacking champions on the enemy team. Now let's go over the Katarina combos. I'll only be going over the new Katarina Gunblade combos. If you want to see more combos, I'll leave a link in the description for my Ultimate Solo Queue Katarina guide, which features more basic and advanced combos that you can learn. So the first combo you need to know is EW Gunblade QER. This is for chasing down enemies that are trying to run away or have lots of movement speed to escape. So you EW onto an enemy, you Gunblade, and then you Q, and you E, and then you ult. The next combo you need to know is EWQ, Gunblade Ult E. This is if you're able to get on top of the enemy and want to deal your full damage combo and burst them down. So you EWQ, Gunblade Ult, and then you E onto your dagger. If you aren't able to get on top of your enemy with that combo, you can use this combo instead. Similar to the other one, instead you want to EW onto a minion, ally, or enemy, walk to the edge of the dagger, and then you Q Gunblade Ult, and then you E to the dagger. So
God damn it.
to finish it off, you can add flash to any of these combos to catch your enemy off guard. I would recommend practicing these combos in practice tool, especially if you're using flash with them. Oh my god. Now let's move on to laning. Laning on Katarina is often just farming under tower and waiting for your jungler to gank, or roaming and skirmishing with your team. But there are a few tips that you should know that will help you with your laning on Katarina. The first being always keeping an eye on your experience bar and know when you'll hit level 2 to 6. This is really important as you can often get a good trade or even a kill if you surprise your opponent by setting up your daggers or jumping right on them as they are a level down. It's like being up 400 gold worth of stats each level. In this clip, I know I hit level 3 off this minion, so I immediately jump onto the TF while he's still level 2 and make a good trade off before jumping back to the minion. Oh my god, he just missed. The second tip you need to know is to use your Q dagger to poke your enemy, especially paired with sudden impact, as you're able to get lots of damage off and force your opponent to base or look to all in. In this clip, I W and then Q the Yone and then use E to proc the sudden impact to get the extra poke damage onto the Yone. Something that a lot of players don't know about sudden impact is you don't need to use it on an enemy for it to proc. So whenever you use your E, you'll have 4 seconds to damage the enemy champion. Otherwise, you'll just put it back on cooldown. Adding these tips together, you can see how I use my level advantage and my Q poke damage to eventually poke the Ahri out and get a solo kill onto her. Oh my god, you're so mad. Your goal in lane as Katarina is just to not fall too far behind. As long as you're even with your laner, you'll be much more impactful than them throughout the game. And finally, here's a tier list of my experience with Katarina matchups. Last but not least, let's talk about teamfighting. As Katarina, you want to be able to track enemy abilities before going in, as you're easily able to be shut down if the enemy is holding a CC ability. To play around this, you want to either wait for your team to go in first and the enemy to use their abilities on them, or bait the enemy abilities by pretending to go in and out of the fight. You want to have a general idea on what the enemy wants to do, and think ahead on how you can play around it. In this clip, I try to bait the enemy abilities by going in and out and slowly chunking them down. I eventually see an angle for me to engage, but knowing that they still have their abilities up, I instantly cast my combo and immediately use Zhonya's to bait out their abilities, and eventually win the team fight. And that concludes my Season 16 Katarina Soloq guide. I tried getting this video out as soon as possible by grinding and testing Katarina for the first few days. If it helped, I'd really appreciate a like and consider subscribing. Good luck on your Season 16 journey.